After thinking about this project, I've decided to go ahead and add some lettering around the lamb that will commemorate the purpose of the actual garment that we're going to embroider this on. So I'm going to click here on the Letters tab to move to the Letters page by clicking here on the Gallery View button on the ribbon bar to open all of the fonts that are available. Now I can use the scroll wheel on my mouse to move up and down through the lettering to find the appropriate lettering to use on this particular design. Now you have to be careful when selecting these letters. While this font, Georgia, looks very nice, you can see that it's intended to be used on 20 to 40 millimeter size lettering, and I don't want to use a size that large. I'd like to use a much smaller one. And if I look right here to the left, here's the exact same font, Georgia, but it's an 8 to 20 millimeter size. So I'll left click on that to select it. What I also want to do is put My First Easter and 2015 in a circular pattern around this design. In order to do that, I'll left click here in the Letters tab and I type in My First and then hit enter to type in Easter 2015. I select the full circle envelope here from the list of line types, and I'll now click here on Apply to apply that. Now as we apply it, you can see that there's a few small problems with this design. First, what I want is the lettering to be shifted further to the right here on the top. So I need to hold the Control key down on my keyboard and left click after I touch this green square so that I can move the square without changing the size of the circle. So I'm still holding the Control key down and I'm going to move it back until I get the letters for My and First close to where I want them. I'll take note of the fact that I want to reduce the space here a little between the F and the Y in My and First. Now this is a problem that comes up from time to time with certain fonts. There's no way to prevent it, but there is a way to edit it, and I'll show you that in another video in this series. Here on the bottom of the lettering, we have the word Easter and 2015, and I note here that the 5 in 2015 is taller than the other letters. And there's a way to correct that as well. So let's move over now to the Edit tab and left click here on Edit to go to the Edit page. And what we see is the lamb is all in white here. That's because it's in what's known as ghost mode, which means that we can't accidentally edit this part of the design. The lettering is in full color here in blue, which means that we can edit this. Now I'm going to zoom in on the lettering by using the zoom tool found in the lower right hand corner of the screen. And I want to select the entire lettering for the word First and move it over to the left so that it's closer to the word My. So I'm going to use one of these selection tools found here in the Select section of the ribbon bar. I'll left click here on Freehand Select to select it. And all I need to do now is left click and drag my mouse pointer around the lettering without touching any of the lettering and get simply close to where I started and release my mouse button, and you can see now that we have the lettering selected. Now I can move the lettering over to the left to get it closer to the word My, but I might want to rotate the lettering a little bit so that it also adheres to the curvature of this line. To do this, I'm going to move my mouse pointer to the center of rotation, that's this small object in the center of the lettering, until my mouse pointer turns 2 crosshairs. I'll left click on this and now move it over here to a point upon which I want to rotate the lettering, which is somewhere close to the bottom left corner of the word First. I'll release my mouse button and now move my mouse pointer over here to the rotation point, and when I do, my mouse pointer changes from a selection to a rotation tool. And now when I left click, you can see I can rotate the lettering about that new location of the center of rotation. I don't need to rotate it much, so I'll move it up a little bit. and then just judge by eye to see if that looks okay to me. I think it does look all right. If I wanted to move the lettering a little bit now, with my mouse pointer within the selection box, it's a four-headed arrow, I can left-click and move the whole lettering object to the left. I think that looks okay, so now I'm going to left-click here and drag down to get to the 5 in 2015. I'll left-click here on the horizontal scroll bar to move over so that I can see the 5. Once again, I'll left-click and draw my line around the number 5. Now, if I make a mistake, for example, and do this, and don't select all of the threads, all I need to do is left-click outside of the selection box. The selection goes away, and I still have the selection tool, as you can tell by the little lariat shown in the lower right-hand corner of my mouse pointer. So I'll left-click now and be more careful as I drag around and select the 5. Now that I've selected the 5, I do want to be in resize mode so that I can make this smaller. So I'm going to move up here to the ribbon bar and left-click on Resize. And I'll now hold down the Control key on my keyboard while I resize. I left-click on this lower right-hand corner and resize this design so that it's a bit smaller. Now that the number 5 is smaller, I can move it around, look at it. It looks to me like it's more in line with the size of the 2, the 0, and the 1. And I've completed my editing chores. I'll now return again to the home page. In the lower right-hand corner of the screen, I'll click on Zoom to Fit. And here I'll admire my work by moving to the Life View tool. And then once again, click here on the Scroll tool to scroll in on it and move the design around to see if this looks good to me. I'll click on Cancel, since I'm pleased with it. And once again, I'm going to save the design as a non-flat VP3 file and a stitch file. So once again, I'll click on File, Save As, and notice that the folders that I used before are still selected. I'll click here on Computer to open it, on the D drive to open it, on Digitizing to open it, on non-flat VP3s to open it, and left-click here on Easter to open it. I'll now left-click here on the name, and then tap the arrow keys on my keyboard to move over and save this as version 02. I'll click Save. The design is saved as a non-flat file. Now I'll save it as a stitch file, and once again I'll click here on File, then Export. Again, I'll save it using all of the same parameters I used before. I'll click on OK. Notice that here is our Tim's Lamb version 01 VP3, and it's in my Stitch folder with my Work With Me folder inside of that, and Easter 2015. And the software has helpfully remembered the name that I saved it as a non-flat VP3 file, so I need not change that name. I'll click on Export, and I've saved everything that way. So I'm now ready to stitch out this version. In our next video, I'm going to add a little more embellishment in the form of a border, and you'll see how to do that then.